Historical Society on BCTV is supported in part by the Highlands at Wyomissing.
Hello, and welcome to the monthly program of the Historical Society of Berks County. My name is Sime Bertolet. I'm the Executive Director of the Historical Society, and I'll be your guest host for this evening. George is off on vacation, a well-deserved one I might add, and will be back to host next month's television program. I'd like to remind the audience that this program is telecast live on the first Wednesday of each month, and then it's repeated at 10 p.m. on Friday, then on Saturday at 6 p.m., and on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. I would also like to say that you can watch the program anytime you'd like by going to the Historical Society of Berks County's website. That's www.berkshistory.org. Click on the Multimedia tab, and that will take you to the Multimedia page where you can view the program, again, on your computer anytime you like, or you can download a podcast version of the television show to watch anytime, any place you want on your iPod, your iPhone, or what have you. So, we'd like to invite you to do that, and we welcome you to the August 2011 program. Seated to my right is Kimberly Longlot, Preservation and Preparator and Museum Store Manager for the Historical Society of Berks County. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you.
This is Kim's first evening on the show, and we're going to be gentle with her. Seated to Kim's right is Mike Schaub, past president of the Reading Fairgrounds Racing Historical Society. To Mike's right is Barry Schultz, Director Emeritus of the Reading Fairgrounds Racing Historical Society. And to Barry's right is Craig Ray, historian and member of the Reading Fairgrounds Racing Historical Society. Now, with all that said, I'm sure you can surmise that tonight's program is going to be on racing, the history of racing in Reading and Berks, as well as the Reading Fair, past and present. So that's what we're doing tonight. I think we have some things on the museum store. Mm-hmm. Tell us about those, Kim.
Well, first of all, the Historical Society's museum and the Henry Johnson Library and the museum store are open Tuesday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Our museum store has a large inventory of Reading and Berks County histories, new and pre-owned. We have a wide variety of pottery, artwork, and craft items by many well-known local artisans and potters. The selection of books is available on our website as well, and you can go to www.berkshistory.org. If you'd like to order any books by mail, just call the Society at 610-375-4375. Now, for the month of August, the museum store's sizzling summer specials are 10% discount on all of our cookbooks and a 10% discount on handmade baskets woven by our own education curator, Vicki Hefner. This is just a reminder, if you're an HSBC member, you get an extra 10% discount in the store, okay? Now, I'll show you some of these books and get them out of Simon's way then. First, we have a peach cookbook and a mushroom cookbook, and they're both authored by Mimi Brodeur. And I have some slides.
We have some on a thumb drive. Can we put those up on the screen? On the computer. There we go. Let's
just a couple examples of the summary recipes, and here are the and this is the time of year for peaches, so I mean, this is a great book to have. It's a peachy chilled peach soup. Also, we have another slide of something that I think looks really yummy.
Ooh, that does look good.
And that's a peachy white wine sangria. And tonight, another thing, I made a recipe called peach bruschetta.
Ooh.
And that sounds a little unusual, but it's really good.
George is going to be sorry he's not here.
Maybe we'll let these guys all sample some.
Pass them down. They're not talking right now. They can. We even have napkins, too.
A couple other examples. We have this Pennsylvania Trail of History cookbook, and this is a classic, has all the classic recipes from the past, including some great photographs of historic places. And we have a slide
I
of
think
some
there's
of the
a slide up
examples.
on there as an example. If you want to go to the graphics, thumb drive, yeah.
Yeah, some really beautiful photographs of some of the historic places. This is Daniel Boone Homestead, and then there was another one of, that's Graham Park.
Wow, these really are good books.
Yeah. The other one, Quaker's Woman's Cookbook, that's a little unusual. Includes a lot of recipes. Also has some chapters like simple remedies and food for the sick. That could be interesting. And believe it or not, the Native Indian cookbook is one of our popular ones that we sell quite a bit of. There's recipes in there for wild game, fish, and wild edibles. And as you'd expect, there'd be many venison and duck recipes and some other interesting, to say the least, dishes like rabbit delight, roast bear and raisin sauce, moose cheese loaf, pressure cooked groundhog, fish cheeks, and I'm not making this up, beaver tails in sauce. And that would be one of Simon's favorites.
The next time I shoot my beaver, I'm going to try that one. That sounds good.
Better not.
Okay.
And also, the baskets by Vicki Hefner are 10% off. This one came in handy as a napkin basket where she put an additional reed across so your napkins don't blow away in the breeze. And then I have just a couple more. Vicki's been making baskets for 18 years now, and she has her favorite basket to make is a bean pot basket, good for picking beans or any kind of vegetables from your garden. And then in addition, has a swivel wire handle. Her second favorite basket to make is Krista's oval basket.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, she really does a nice job and very reasonably priced. The stripes along here are made with seagrass. And my favorite is the cat head basket. It's a whimsical design, and when you turn it like this, it kind of looks like a cat, if you can see it.
The work is really incredible.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I always say that when the gift shop is really special, because if you're going out of town, if you're going to visit some people, that might not be from Berks County, and you really want to give them a gift that's unique to our culture and our customs here in Berks County, the museum store is the place to go. It really is.
And we try to keep a lot of local authors, local artists, carry some of the racing historians things right now because of our exhibit. And, well, that's it for the show and tell.
Okay.
Let me move this so that it's not in your view.
I would also tell the viewing audience that autumn's approaching. You wouldn't tell it by the temperatures that we've been having, but I assure you it is. And with autumn, it's the release of The Passing Scene, and this year it's volume 19, which George is hard at work at. If you go to the monitor, yes, I have the Passing Scene 19. It's going to be the same high quality that it's always been, 272 pages, hardbound volume, 272 pages of 100-pound high-gloss encyclopedic text. You're going to have an index with 4,500 entries in it, so you can immediately reference any of the pictures that you're looking for. Many before and after photographs, probably in the neighborhood of 450 photographs. So it really is a great book. $49 if you pick it up at the Historical Society, tax included, $57 if you'd like it mailed. So yeah, look forward to November with the release of The Passing Scene. You can call the Historical Society at 610-375-4375 to place your order, and you can either pick it up or have it mailed to you. We are taking orders in advance, so don't hesitate to call your order in. And it's something a little bit different this year, and that is in years past we have always had the autograph party, which we're going to do again this year. But you're going to be able to pick your books up prior to the autograph party. This year we're going to have the autograph signing sessions are going to be, I believe, December 3rd and then also December 10th. December 10th will be our second Saturday program, and George will be presenting the Passing Scene 19 for that. So this is going to allow you to pick up your Passing Scene a little bit early, review the book, and then come to the George's program with questions ready for the author. So that's going to be coming up in November. Let's see. We also have to talk about, we remind our viewers that for as little as $40 a year, you can be a member of the Historical Society. We've got a lot of great things going on. We've got a lot of great programming, things like our current exhibit, Racing in Reading and Berks, and Fancy Coverlets of Berks County, not to mention the 4 Centuries in Berks Historic Property Tour. But in addition to all those great events, you also have the Historical Review of Berks County in continuous publication since 1935. A beautiful 4-color journal that comes out 4 times a year. You also have the electronic members update. You have notification of the many upcoming events, programs, exhibits, that type of thing. So there are a lot of benefits that go with your membership. Not to mention you're doing a great service for one of the older organizations in Reading and Berks County. For as little as $50 a month, you get all the benefits I mentioned before that for all the members that are living in underneath one household. Unlimited access to the museum as well as to the library. So it's a great program, a great membership. And also, you know, I think, Kim, you'll talk a little bit about BCTV. That's another good organization.
Yes, and while we're on the subject of memberships, we remind you that Berks Community Television is a survivor and a tough nonprofit venue and a unique entity in that it's interactive. Home viewers are encouraged to call in during the show, live on the air, with questions and comments at 610-378-0426.
Yeah, BCTV is a great organization. It gives you the information on your community when you need it, when you want it. And the way to support BCTV is by joining BCTV. So I encourage you to send your check for $30 for a year's membership to BCTV at 645 Penn Street in Reading, Pennsylvania, 19601. Help this organization. They do a great job for this community.
Mm-hmm. Now, we want to get these guys going here, so I just have a few more things to say. I don't know if you'd like to show some pictures. Our main museum building at 940 Center Avenue is getting a well-needed facelift, and progress is being made. They've been working on it for weeks and doing a beautiful job.
Yep.
I think Simon has some slides.
I do have some photographs for you. It's let me see how I can get these things up here. We were very fortunate to have, through a generous bequest to the Historical Society by the Historical Society Auxiliary. And as you can see, that's the front of the building prior, or when they were doing some of the restoration work. And a paint job hadn't been done on the Historical Society since about, I'd say, 25 years ago. But there you can see some of the work that they're doing. There's some of the work to the front Palladium window that we have at the Historical Society in front of the Connor Auditorium. And then, as you can really see there, they had to do a lot of prep work on those windows. And the result was, that's pretty nice. We got some pretty red doors. The crest, the back plate on the right above on the railing, that's been repainted, and it really does look great. We also did the back. I think we have a shot here of the back. So, yeah, it's they done a wonderful job. JB Painting has really come through and really got a well-needed facelift. So that's what's going on at the Historical Society right now. And with that, I'd like, what's that?
The next thing, just coming up at the Hendel House, real quick, would be on September 9th, and that's their annual barbecue featuring Ragtime Willie. And you have a choice of chicken or pork with coleslaw and corn on the cob for only $7. I would expect all you guys to be there. Okay.
All right. Okay. Well, as I said, tonight we have some very special guests. One of the things, and I think the mission of the Historical Society of Berks County, is to preserve the historic legacy and the cultural legacy of this community. And at any opportunity that we can, we like to do that along with the other historical societies that we have here in Berks County. And one of the great ones is the Reading Fairgrounds Racing Historical Society. And these three gentlemen are joining us tonight. And all of us at the Historical Society really have owe them a great deal, because they really helped a lot, as did many other participants, in putting on our current exhibit, Racing in Reading and Berks. And I'd like to turn to Barry and just ask him a little bit and open it up to these three fellows on what, you know, how the organization got started, what the impetus was, where you've come from, how long you've been in there. And I'll just turn it over to you, and as the questions come up, you know, let you answer them.
Well, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you folks for having us here. I recently took my granddaughter over to the Historical Society to see your racing display. Since then, I had 5 of my friends from New Jersey drive up, and I'd like to thank you guys for the wonderful job you did over there. In 1980, a piece of history left Berks County. It was called the Reading Fairground. 79, Michael says. Thank you. And anyway, I always thought it was just part of our lives for us older people in Berks County. On a Friday night, it was probably the biggest babysitter anybody could ever have. Mom and Dad could take you out to the fair, drop you off. They'd hear the cars in Reading, they'd come back out, pick you up, and everybody knew where you were. And I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. It was a part of our lives. When the fairground closed, once a year they'd have a little racing reunion at the Fairgrounds Mall. Well, to be honest with you, most of us older guys, we would just hang around and talk and talk. And one night after one of the reunions, Ken Johnson from Hamburg, Mike Grimm from Temple, and myself looked at each other and said, this isn't working. Years ago, when our grandchildren grow up, they're not going to know what the Reading Fairground really was. So in essence, we just got together and sat down, and of course, Michael here and Craig I knew, and we just put the word out, and we had a meeting at the Reading Elks. Since then, we meet once a month, the first Wednesday of the month at the Reading Elks. Anybody in Berks County is welcome to come and join in, come up and see some of your old-time favorites, actually living legends, as they are now. Some of them are in bad health, as we know, but it's really a neat night to come up there. And but the thing took off. We have 2 trucks that we take. Anybody's going to the Reading Fair, stop by. You'll be totally amazed. Any place I go, or Mike or Craig go, you wind up, somebody will say, oh my, the Reading Fairground. It's just unbelievable. I mean, it was probably one of the finest half-mile dirt racing tracks in the United States. Mike, you have anything to add to that?
No, you were saying about the racetrack. The legend has it, everybody says if you ever won at Reading, you could win anywhere. And if you look at the drivers that raced at Reading, you had A.J. Foyt, Mario Andretti, Bobby Unser, Parnelli Jones, Roger Ward. You had Junior Johnson, won both NASCAR races. And the list goes on and on and on. And Jimmy Horton, he went and ran NASCAR for a while. Ty Scott also ran NASCAR for a while. So Reading was kind of a hub of racing throughout the East Coast. Being in the military, I've been all over, and when they would say, where are you from, I'd say Reading. The first thing they would say was, oh, they got that famous racetrack there, don't they? So it's worldwide known. And like Barry said, it's missed. Everybody misses it. It'll never be the same. Even though we have a small racetrack at the new fairgrounds, it's just not the same without the big racing that goes on at Reading.
You know, it was one thing that as we were doing the research for this, and I grew up as a kid growing up in Reading and Berks County, and I went to the fairgrounds, saw the stock car races, saw the sprint car races and things like that. The thing that was so impressive is that when you talk about the guys like Hurtubise and Foyt and Parnelli Jones and Mario Andretti, the Unser brothers, Roger Ward, McCluskey, those were nationally known drivers that raced all over the country. And it wasn't that, that they came to Reading as young drivers saying, I'm going to cut my teeth here. They won there. They won Indianapolis. They came back to Reading. Mm-hmm. Time after time. This wasn't, just a certain thing that they said, okay, now I don't have to do that. They wanted to race Reading, and that really speaks volumes to the importance of that track, I think.
And also you have your local drivers like Joey Chitwood.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
And Tommy Hinnershitz.
Tommy Hinnershitz, for sure. Hold that book up. I mean, that's
a guy by the name of Gary Ludwig.
Johnny Thompson
wrote a book about Tommy Hinnershitz. It's very interesting.
We have a slide up there.
We have to contact Gary Ludwig to buy it.
It's available in our museum
There
stores.
you go. You go to the museum, it's available there.
Yes.
If I can add something to what you just said about the Unsers and AJ Foot, Mario, a lot of people may not realize, but there have been 5 drivers that competed in the Indianapolis 500 that raced in the modifieds at Reading. And one of them was we had Larry Dixon, Ernie McCoy,
Wow.
Jan Opperman, Wally Dallenbach,
There's no on TV.
and Jim Hurtubise spent some time in a modified. As you know, Larry Dixon's, he 3-time USAC champion, raced in Indianapolis. He won everything there was to win in the sprint cars, and he came to Reading, and not just for the money, he wanted to run where the competition was at.
Yeah.
And to tell you how good he was, he drove Toby's backup car. The very first night he was there, started last in his heat, qualified. Started 18th in the feature and got 5th.
Wow. And those fields, 18, how many, what were in those fields?
24 cars.
24 cars. That's tough. I mean, that,
It was.
those are competitors.
Yeah,
And the payoff back then was just like tremendous for what, for that period of time. In '74 they were paying $900 to win, $60 to take the green.
Huh.
Lindy would pay heat and consi money. He would pay tow money. It was
Now
just,
say that again? I didn't understand that.
Lindy would pay tow money. If you came and didn't qualify, you still got money.
Really?
If you, wherever you placed in the heat, you got money. So if you won your heat, I think it was $50, I don't quote me on that one, but if you say you won your heat, $50, and you won the feature, you took some money home.
Huh. Well, when we're looking at talking about these drivers, Johnny Rutherford, that's a 3-time Indianapolis 500 winner, but when he turned sports commentator for NBC Sports, he made the comment, he said, anybody who was anybody in racing in the United States raced at Reading, Pennsylvania.
That's
Bar none.
basically true.
That's it. I mean, it was that important. When you look at that, does the Fairgrounds Racing Historical Society focus on, like I said, when you talk about Lindy Vicari, that's also another aspect of racing in Reading and Berks I think that's unique. Al Gaspari and Lindy Vicari, those are 2 pretty, forward-thinking guys in the field. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Well, go ahead, Mike.
Well, you go ahead.
Well, this is coming from Warren Ruffner. They had,
Warren was the announcer.
The announcer.
He just recently passed away.
yeah, that's correct.
He was also the president, I believe, at one time.
Okay.
Right, he
Of the
started out
RCA.
as the president. Lindy and Albert were interested in the stock cars because that was the incoming thing. The purses were inexpensive. Anybody could go Monday, buy a car at the junkyard, and then following Sunday they run on the track. So they knew this was the growing thing. So they went up to Williams Grove just to check it out. And then they formed with like you said, Warren as the president, and Lindy with his knowledge. He was very, very good as a promoter, and Albert with his money. And they say the rest is history. They just paid the great purse. They attracted all the top drivers.
Okay, and they attracted those top drivers. There was some things I heard that there were reasons that they got those top drivers to stay here in Reading. Go into a little bit on that.
Well, Lindy was very good with owners who say they wrecked their car. Lindy was good at slipping some extra money in the pay envelope. I heard that from so many guys.
He did definitely do that.
And he would always, as a promoter, he was always thinking, if somebody had 2 cars and one was vacant, he'd line up a top driver to go in that car.
Yeah.
And he would build it up during the week in the paper. He'd like, such and such owner's bringing this car, who's going to drive it tonight? So now, now you're drawing an interest.
Sure.
So people are going to see who's in this car, kind of deal. And
Okay.
he was good at that. He was very good at that. Plus,
okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
plus they stuck with the modifieds. They didn't run anything else. And the show was over early, and he could pay a good purse, like 10,000 people for a show. And Mike and Barry will tell you, if you didn't get there by 6 o'clock to save a seat, you were sitting in the bleachers or going in the infield.
That's for sure.
Can I add to that? I'd like to add to that. Lindy, as a promoter, was the best promoter on the East Coast. If you got there at 4 o'clock, and it amazed me every week because I was there for many, many years. 4 o'clock, people would be standing in line. The gates would open at 5, and the same people would sit in the same seats every week, yet they would push and shove each other through the gate to run up through the stands to sit in seats that were nowhere near where they were going to sit. It was like total amazing. Another thing Lindy came up with was Formula L. It was a magic potion to make his racetrack tacky. It actually was less toil.
Well, okay, and that's a whole nother facet of Lindy the Carrot. His track preparation.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I mean, it was, they say it was unlike any place else, but there was nobody more meticulous about, and to the point that he would drive the grader himself.
He always drove the grader. In fact, I remember one time coming around turn 4, he put the grader down by mistake, and he went right through the windshield.
Right,
and it left an impression of his nose on the windshield. He was bleeding, put it back up, and away he went until he was done with the track. Then he went and sought medical attention.
Now, how long would it take, prior to a race, how long would they work on that track in preparation?
All day.
All day?
All day.
So what would they start disking in the morning?
They probably started on a Thursday for a Friday night show, depending on the weather. If it's going to be real dry, they would be working on putting water on the track or whatever they wanted to do. And then if you went out there at 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, they were out there working.
So they would disc that first, and then would they put lime in there to get some consistency, or did they not need that?
They used some lime if it was real dusty.
Okay.
Yeah. But he was a wizard. I can relate one story that my wife and I went to the Bellevue Diner after a race, like 4 in the morning, and Lindy actually took toast and was showing my wife how you pad the different type of mud till you get to the right surface. I sat there, I was like astonished. I said, here we are at 4 in the morning, and this man's showing us how to mix mud.
So when they were talking about that Formula L, is that less toil? Did you say that was less toil? Now they would run a solution of less toil, what, in those big water tankers?
In with the water.
In with the water tankers.
He had his own formula for it.
Okay.
How much to put in.
No kidding.
And it basically kept the track tacky and most of the time dust-free.
Okay, and then they'd run that, and they'd lay that down there, and then they what? Did they have? I can't remember. Did they have rollers? I remember trucks going around there.
Yeah, rollers and then
drive it in, and he had a big machine with like 20 wheels on.
Yeah.
And he also had a machine that had like spikes on.
What was that for?
It would like cultivate it a little bit.
Okay. Okay, so that'd give us some aeration. Then they'd run
start with the spike thing, and then he'd go with the watering and then work everything in.
Okay, huh.
We have a great enlargement in the front there of I call it the dirt one.
Yeah.
And maybe you guys have something to say about that. It's one of our favorite enlargements, and we have several around the studio.
The one on to my side. Well, okay, that's another one.
That's
Now we'll talk about that.
That was another innovation, fan clubs.
Because that's important. When you start talking about, when we looked at this exhibit, and okay, you know, we're not just putting out artifacts, you know, and those are important, everything like that. We want to bring back the memories, but there was also other things that made Reading important, and I always call them the firsts, okay? And I look at, and I want to talk to you more about this later, but one of the firsts was the fan clubs, because I always say that you look at these fan clubs, and you tell us more about them, but when you look at the fan clubs that today are for the NASCAR drivers, and they have, you know, they have huge fan clubs, you know, Tony Stewart fan clubs, you know, Casey Kane fan clubs. I say, go back to Reading, Pennsylvania, 40, 50 years ago, and that's where you see the roots. And when you look at that, when you look at downstairs, put the camera on that fan club.
On the Freddie Adam again.
On the fan club photo. Yeah, there you go. Tell us about, and I said, the fan clubs that got started there.
Well, when you would go in on Friday nights, the whole front of the grandstand would be full of fan clubs. They had their banners. We were sitting side by side, and it was unique because they all basically sat together, and you always had a rivalry going between one fan club and the other when the drivers were out on the track. You know, like you'd have Freddie Adam, maybe Altaz, and Natty. Well, if they're battling side by side, they'd be cheering. One would try to cheer louder than the other for their driver to get, you know, the lead. And they must have had, I'd say, about 15, 20 fan clubs.
Maybe more.
Maybe even more.
And these things started as grassroots. I mean, this
Yes.
wasn't, you didn't have somebody
Absolutely.
says, okay, we're going to have an Al Tasnadi fan club, we're going to have Freddie Adams fan club. These were people who had, you know, who had mutual respect for these drivers and would graduate together or would congregate together, and all of a sudden you found that you had a fan club. Is that right?
They were loyal fans.
That's really amazing. I mean, that's unique to Berks County.
One of the things that amaze me now is if we go to the mall show or say the Reading Fair next week, there might be a Dick Tobias fan come walking in who hated Mike Shaw back in the days of racing.
Okay.
Now you'll see them hugging each other, and it's just totally amazing.
You know,
Mike and Craig
Race night, you were your enemy. The next day, you
Hey,
were
everybody's
buddy.
but they bonded together through this.
That's great.
I don't know if the camera can zoom in, but we have a Bud Olson.
Well, I'd like to
fan club
continue.
jacket.
We do have to take a break for BCTV because, like I said, you know, to promote BCTV. But if we'll come back to this because there are a lot of other questions we want to ask. Anyway, BCTV, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
You're watching the Historical Society of Berks County on bctv.org. Be informed, be involved, be a member. For membership information, go to www.bctv.org/support/membership. For other information on local heritage societies and local history, go to bctv.org. The Historical Society of Berks County on bctv.org is underwritten by the Highlands. To find out how you and your business can support a program on BCTV, go to bctv.org.
Okay, we're back. When we went to break, we were talking about the fan clubs. Let's see whether there's anything we need to say about them. We were showing some of the Bud Olson. Yeah, the Bud Olson. Like you said, at the day of race, they were arch enemies. I mean, they were.
And it's unbelievable.
But then afterwards, they just said we have a common interest in a really great sport.
With the Bud Olson jacket, you were proud to wear that jacket.
I bet.
That was your man, you know.
Now, like you said, they had sections. These were unofficial clubs, but they had sections in the stadium. Were those almost unwritten rules that, you know, you don't go into that section unless you're...
Almost every seat in the grandstand was unwritten that the people that were sitting there sat there. Likewise on the backstretch. Because when I first went to the races, we sat on the backstretch in the cars.
Right?
You parked, that was your space.
Okay.
If you didn't come some week and somebody else came and went to park there, your people on either side of you told them to leave.
Did they
You
really?
didn't belong there. That wasn't your space.
Unless you joined.
And I know there was like quite a few arguments that they had to call the police to come and get people to move their vehicles because you went to the very first race, that was your spot, no matter what.
So they're pretty rabid.
Likewise in the grandstand, where you sat there, that was basically your seat.
Well, like I said, you look at that photograph of those, and again, this, you know, it crossed gender lines, gender barriers. You see in that photograph right down there. This is 1960s. You know, it was I'd say a man's sport, but there were a lot of men that really liked racing. But that picture indicates that, you know, the women and the ladies liked it too.
Well, most of the women were presidents of the fan clubs.
Is that right?
For the most part, yeah.
Huh. That's neat.
And that Freddie Adams banner, the president of the fan club gave it to our organization, so we actually have that one.
Really?
We have that one. We had the Whitey Kirshner fan club and one or two other ones.
Huh.
Harry Garber. I mean, they're still around, you know, after all these years.
Now, we're talking about firsts. Okay, you had fan clubs that were firsts. You had track preparation. That was one of the first. But you also had rules. I mean, Gaspari and Vicari, as I understand it, prior to each season, they would outline the rules for the Reading Stock Car Racing Association, and they would gather the drivers, and as well as the promoters,
and the owners.
And then they would set the rules. And was there anything special? I mean, did any of the drivers ever talk about, you know, those rules meetings and, you know?
Oh yeah, they talk. But,
Oh, really?
They talked a lot.
Like when we had the fair, we have a lot of the drivers there, and just talk to a few of them about the rules. They'll tell you about what went on in those rules.
And how they broke
Certain
them.
drivers,
rules meetings.
And how they broke them.
certain drivers said, "This is the way it's going to be,
Uh-huh.
because this is the way I want it to be,"
Okay.
and that's the way some of the rules were made.
Okay, but there was a give and take. I would imagine there was somewhat of a give and take because they're okay, you know, we can bend on this, but we can't bend on that?
Well, when he started to go from the old frames to the homemade frames, that's where the people who were making the frames were saying, well, the old frames are now rusty, but we make our frames now.
Okay.
You know, this is what we're going to race.
So is that when they went from the flatheads to the modifieds?
Well, the modified still ran the old frames
Oh, they did?
until about early, late 60s, early 70s?
Okay.
70s.
Mid-70s?
So when they started going over from, what were they, 32 Fords and things like that, that body style, when they started going to the Pintos, and
Yeah, that's when they were changing.
that's when they were changing.
And then Toby Tobias came out with, like Mike was saying, Barry, the 2x4, his frames. You know, they weren't going to the junkyard anymore. They were going to Tobias and
Having them made.
having them made.
Kreitz and Brightbow started making them, and then it just went up into New York State.
Toby actually told me, because I worked for him as a PR man at Penn National, one night we were sitting there talking and just joking around, and he said he would spend 2 months in the winter looking at the rule book just to see where he could bend it.
Really?
Didn't say he broke it.
No, well, no.
He just said he bent it, and he was, well, this guy's sitting here, well, I'll tell you, he was excellent.
They always look for a gray area.
Well, sure. I mean, you know, like you said, you don't evade taxes, you just avoid them. Okay? And so, you know, you start looking at...
Even NASCAR, they cut corners wherever they can.
Well, sure, and if they can get, and if, like I said, if they can use it to their advantage and if they can get around it and still be legal, they will do that.
Toby brought the Superdog out to 1 year. It looked like a super modified.
Uh-huh.
Had a long hood on it and a narrow body.
Okay.
And they got the rule book out, and he built it right to the minimum requirement of the rules. So I think he raced it 2 weeks, and all the other drivers and owners said, we ain't going to race unless something's done.
Okay.
So they asked Toby if he would make his car look... The thing was, the car just looks illegal, but it was legal. So then he put the rest of the body back on to make everybody happy. But he made it right to the minimum required.
But, you know, you look at, again, you look at the evolution of the racing in Reading and Berks County, and I mean, that's kind of the story of history in itself. I mean, that's modernity. I mean, you know, all of a sudden you see these drivers coming out of the flatheads, you see them coming out of, you know, more stock cars, and it gets more sophisticated and more sophisticated and more sophisticated. They also did, in looking at this, things like the 3-minute clock.
Another innovation.
Yeah, tell us about yeah, that was another innovation.
Well, the 3-minute clock was when the feature was started, they gave the lineup, and then he would put the 3-minute clock on.
Okay.
And it had green, yellow, and red. The first minute was green, the second was yellow, the third minute was red. Once that was out, anybody that came out afterward had to start to the rear of the field.
Okay.
Likewise, if you were running your heat or the feature and an accident came out, they put the 3-minute clock on, you could go in and repair your car, but you had to be out before the clock ran out, or you had to go to the rear of the field.
No matter where you were, what position you were in when you...
Correct.
Right.
So if you had Altaz Natty leading the race...
That was the rule, but I can tell you there were some drivers that came out and didn't go to the rear.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
One
You ain't
night,
mentioning names.
it may have been it may even been Taz. It was a big name driver, and again, we would say, especially if you didn't like the driver, you know, you would always be watching the clock, watching the pits. Is he going to make it or not? Well, this one night, like Mike said, once the red's out, you go to the rear. Well, this driver came out and he didn't go to the rear, and they were booing and carrying on. And what came down from the tower was he was moving. He was on his way through the pits to the gate. That was their way, you know. That was their explanation of why he.
So why he didn't get docked.
Right.
So.
Even though the rules stated you had to be on the track.
You had to be out of the pits.
He was making his way to the track.
Yeah, he was making his way to the track.
He could retain his position.
And
but it depended on who you were as to how the rules went.
So there was a little bit of flexibility on the promoter's side, okay? Because I guess they felt that those were the guys that they were bringing the crowds into that thing. Well, when you talk about lighting system, you talk about the red, yellow, green. Am I right that Reading was one of the first tracks, maybe of its size, that you had a lighting system that went around the track.
Yep.
It was the first.
It was
So
the first one.
no matter where a driver was, if if he was running the backstretch and they had an accident in the first turn, they could run that lighting system. Throw a yellow, throw it under caution, and he'd know that was the condition, no matter where he was, and that was a Reading first.
Yep.
That's
and several other
amazing.
tracks picked up on it.
That's incredible. Like I said, they have that photograph up on the screen. I mean, that's an early sprint car race. What's that, about 1930, 1940 sometime?
Yeah, somewhere
Been around there, I'd say, yeah.
I mean, you just look at the crowds.
Barry should know. Barry was here. You right there in the middle, Barry?
I was lucky. I went to my first race in '54 and got hooked on them, and wound up having a car when we were in high school and worked for a couple newspapers, and it was my life, and I would never trade a minute of it. And one thing I don't want us to miss here tonight is fan accessibility for the drivers. When the race was over, see those pits in that picture? Mm-hmm. Everybody in the stands went in the pits, and it may be 3, 4 o'clock, like I said in the morning. Them drivers, most of them, were still there.
They'd stand, sit and sign autographs.
Would they really?
Nowadays,
None of your tracks nowadays
They go.
have that.
No.
They go.
Not at all. Not at all. And I mean, what were the crowds at the gates of those? How many people?
they averaged on a Friday night roughly around 10,000 people for the modifieds, and when they ran the flatheads, they went from 7,000 to 8,000.
Wow.
And doing some research, the largest crowd that I saw that they ever had there was a sprint car race in 1941. I think that had over 33,000 fans just to see a sprint car race.
Just to see
Opening day, Si, you had to get there at 10 in the morning, 10 or 11 in the morning.
to see that evening's race.
Well, they would start warm-ups like 1:15
Okay.
and start racing at
And
2.
the temperature could have been 32 degrees.
People would be bundled up in blankets, but people would come down, you name New York, Connecticut, everywhere, because the upstate, of New York and that, their tracks weren't running yet. Reading, and they all came, all the big names came down to Reading, and they, all their fans came, so it was jammed packed.
And like I said, all these guys, these drivers, you had the best modified drivers from around the country, and many of them, and here's one of the other things, when they would come to live in Reading for the season, right? There are a number of
the Florida drivers come up.
Yeah.
Florida guys would come up, they'd get an apartment or whatever in Reading, and then at the fairgrounds they raced 2 nights, if I'm right. They raced Friday night, and they raced on Sunday night.
And they race at Middletown, New York
Or Flemington.
or Flemington, New Jersey on a Saturday night.
On the Saturday night.
Yeah.
Plus any weekday in the middle of the week races sometimes.
Okay,
Sometimes
so you
down,
have so right there you build your fan loyalty by saying you know your favorite driver is going to be there on a Friday and a Sunday night, and so why waste any place else? Automatically you're going to have your fan base there. You're going to have a huge purse. Why take the chance of traveling all over the country, spending dollars on gas and trailer in your car, chance of accident when you have 2 real big purses, two of the biggest purses in the country, on 2 nights of the weekend.
Well, see, not everybody that raced Friday would come to Reading Sunday.
Okay.
Depending on their owner.
Oh, okay.
Like a lot of them would go up to Nazareth on a Sunday night.
Okay.
Because their owner was committed to running Nazareth.
Ah, okay.
But then you have some other drivers that would come that didn't run on Friday because they may have run East Windsor,
Okay.
but it was a chance to run Reading on Sunday, so they would come on Sunday. So it basically, there were more cars on a Friday night than there were on a Sunday night.
Okay.
But they averaged like 35, 40 cars a weekly show for the most part.
All right. Now, one of the things that, when we were talking about this, and I was talking to Mike Grimm, and it was really kind of nice. I mean, I went to grade school with Mike, and I'll never forget when we first started talking about, we're going to do this racing in Reading and Berks, and I called up and we were talking on the phone, and at the end of it, he says, Simon, he said, how old are you? And I said, I'm 57. I said, Mike, this is you from Byrne Township Elementary. He said, yeah. I said, boy, it's been a long time, my friend. Anyway, long story short, when we were talking about racing at the Reading Fairgrounds, one of the highlights of the racing season was the Reading Fair, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
All right, tell us about the Reading, the relationship between the Reading Fair and the racing out at the fairgrounds, and some of the races they had different races. There were races that were specific to the fair week, right?
Right.
Back in 1924 was the first sprint car race that they had at the fairgrounds.
1924, right.
But then they would also have the race run during the fair. And it wasn't until, I think, the late 30s where they started having other shows other than the Reading Fair show.
Okay.
It became a standalone date is what they called it. So they had more races. They would have 2 a year. They have one like in March or April, then they have the one in September for the fair race.
Okay.
With that said, once the modifieds, well, they used to have the flatheads used to run on a Wednesday night during the fair, and then
Okay.
again on Friday night for a double show. And then with the modifieds, they would bring them in and have special shows during the fair as well.
Okay.
And then they also had other races like the Beater Kennedy Memorial, Jackie Evans Memorial, and then they had the Indy 50, which was always run before the Indianapolis race.
Okay.
And then,
Wow.
And they threw in that whole
and then the big one, the Daniel Boone 200, always near the end of the year, was the big show.
Was that part of Fair Week, or was that a
No,
different?
that was
that was
independent.
end of the
Yeah.
season.
That was in, and
That
then,
was huge.
was that huge?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that was that a 200 mile or 200 lap
200 lap.
race?
200 lap.
200 lap.
200 lap race, so 100 miles. How long did it take them to run that? Because I remember when a lot of times when you go, depending on the night, boy, if they had accidents, like you said, you know, that race would go, or the feature would go till 1 o'clock in the morning. Now, how long would that Daniel Boone 200? I mean, sheesh.
I'd say about 3.5, 4 hours.
It was an
roughly.
afternoon race, so.
Okay.
Well, they did
a
run
little
them
bit-
at night in the end.
At the end.
And so they would have, so that would run 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, what they'd do was they'd run time trials and then they'd run the race. And they may have a consolation race. Then when they went to the nighttime, Friday nights they would have the preliminaries, and then Saturday would just be like the last chance race and then the Daniel Boone race.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question since we're running a little late. What is that in the front, that wheel?
Oh, that,
Can you
You can tell
explain that?
Right, that
like it.
wheel is belonged to Kenny Brightbill. We have a picture on the
19.
of the 19. I don't know if they have it there. Should bring it up. Kenny, earlier when we were talking about the expense and how things were starting to get more technical, Kenny being, you know, in fact, you can probably see the wheel. I don't think you can zoom in. His left rear wheel.
Okay.
He's running. That car has that wheel on, busted. Kenny was not a high dollar guy. Kenny would run, as long as it didn't fly off the car or break, it stayed on the car and he'd go out and win. You can see him, he's running that car as hard as he ever ran a car in a corner with a broken wheel.
With a broken wheel.
With a broken wheel. He's not a money guy.
So that rear wheel that we can see, the rear tire, rear wheel that we can see in that photograph, that is what we're looking at on the
That's
floor
what we're
here,
looking
and that is in the same condition. Thanks for zooming in on that. That's in the same condition there as it was here.
Right here. Yeah.
And yet he was he was really a winning driver.
Yes, he was, and for what he spent, I mean, he made everything. He made everything. Like you say, that you can see that wheel. He ran that wheel. As long as it didn't got him to the finish line, it was on the car.
As long as it held a seal.
Yep.
And
That's amazing.
whose helmet was that?
The helmet here, this belongs to Russ Smith. He was the 1962 Flathead Point champion at the Reading Fairgrounds. And anyone listening, if you're a Russ Smith fan, Kenny Brightbill fan, come out to the fair because they'll be there
yeah, Russ also won 23 flathead races. He's the winningest flathead driver at Reading.
at the fairgrounds. Yep.
He had, 11 in a row?
Yeah.
One time he had 11 in a row.
Wow. Did the speeds increase significantly when they went from the flatheads to the modifieds?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They did, yeah, okay. I thought they might. Well, okay, so you had all those races. I think there were 425s. Was that during the race, or was that another?
That was another special event.
That was a special.
That was
They had
another special race.
425s.
But you had all those races. Now we have the Reading Fair down on Berks County lands up by the county prison. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and what's your organization's role in the Reading Fair now?
Mike.
But we want to bring racing back to Reading.
Okay.
So we had approached the fair, or the fair had approached us about putting a display up underneath a tent, which we did the first year.
Okay.
And then the club decided, why don't we just get the track and put a racetrack there and run slingshots. It's like a go-kart with a body on it.
Okay.
So we talked to several people if they'd be interested, and they said yeah. So we started running slingshots, and it's called the Summer National Nostalgias. It pays $1,000 to win. And this year we're running on Sunday preliminary starting at 1 o'clock with the warm-ups and the main racing starting at 2:30. It's advertised at 7 o'clock, but the fair closes at 8. So it's 1 o'clock. The gates open for the pits at 11. Monday night then we're running go-karts and the slingshot feature and also the junior feature. The juniors are up to, I think, age 14 or 15.
And the slingshots, what's the age group on those?
It's any age group, but they have what they call the juniors up to 14. But
Okay.
some of them do run in the senior division depending on where they run because they don't have enough junior cars to run.
Okay, and what is the length of the track now at the?
It's about a 1/13 mile, give or take.
Okay. What kind of speeds do they get on that?
They were telling us around
40,
50, around
Okay.
50 for the slingshot.
It's pretty good. They're pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That low to the ground, that short a
Yeah.
track. Yeah, I mean that. Yeah.
If I can add one thing.
Absolutely.
Sunday and Monday, we're going to have the drivers there again, and then we'll do a driver introduction prior to the features Sunday and Monday. So anyone listening and they have a favorite driver, come on out. They'll be there.
Okay. And then on Wednesday night,
Wednesday
The Hall
night
of Fame.
is
Hall of Fame.
our
Hall
home
of Fame
champions.
can you tell us who that's going to be? Is that a surprise?
No, it's, should have brought the list along. It's going to be Davy Brown, Jerry Katz, Jim Kepley,
Line box.
the Linebach brothers, Jackie McLaughlin,
Really.
Charlie Bailey, Sammy Reber, and I'm missing 2 more. And I apologize for that. But there's 9 people being inducted this year.
That's great.
And what's neat about that, 2 of the drivers that are being inducted, Charlie Bailey and Jimmy Kepley, were both Rookies of the Year.
Okay.
Charlie Bailey was the very first Rookie of the Year in 1957, and Kepley was in 1968. But again, come out Wednesday too, because we're going to have everybody's going to be there.
Okay. Well, you're going to have, but at the fair, you're going to have your trailer, right?
Correct.
This organization has a really well-run, just a well-run organization. When I was very impressed when I went there when we were getting the exhibit together, and I had a chance to work with you fellas. Just they knew their mission, what they wanted to do, and they focused in on that, and they tell the story better than anybody that I know could tell it, and it's just really nice to see that you're going to have that trailer out there that'll have a lot of racing memorabilia. What all can tell the audience maybe about?
You name, we have it. I just got a picture the other day. A lady from New York sent me one. I haven't brought it out to the club yet, of like 1935 sprint cars.
Wow.
It was that real small. I took
Okay.
it to Staples. I have it now in 8.5 by whatever.
Uh-huh.
Yep, as big as we can make it. Mike Grimm's attic is full of, we could fill probably, 4 or 5 tractor trailers,
Yeah, we
and then restock it every week.
We have a storage trailer. We have a lot of stuff in. Like Barry said, Mike Grimm's office has a lot of stuff in.
It's unbelievable, totally unbelievable.
And what people can see when they come through our trailer, we have a lot of things that were donated by the drivers and the owners. Racing helmets, like you see here, racing uniform like Bobby Braxton's, like pictures, trophies, all kinds of things that the owners and drivers were so enthused with what this club was doing that they donated.
How many cars do you have? I mean, full-size cars.
Well, the club doesn't have cars. Mike Grimm has the cars.
Okay, all right. But that's
He
one
has
of your
about-
principal members, too.
Yeah, he has about 4
Absolutely.
or 5. Plus, there's quite a few he has
We
out
have
there that have
access
to be
to a whole
restored.
bunch. How many,
Yeah.
Mike, total?
No, I don't know.
How many do we have at Municipal Stadium that?
We had 65 at Municipal
65
Stadium.
at Municipal Stadium the
Wow,
other year.
65.
And will you have your things
Yeah.
available?
Yes, we have our
Yes,
stuff for sale. We have the hat. We have the 2011 T-shirt. We have the Ready Modified Memory book, which is very good.
Excellent.
And also Lynn Schaefer DVD from the Reading Races. This is a very good DVD. And then if you join the club, you get a newsletter every 3 months. And if you want to go on our website, it's www.rfrhs.org. You can go to all the information on there to join or to contact any of the members or the board of directors or the president himself, which is Alan Carter. And Alan is Rags Carter's son.
Well, and I would also say that, if the audience didn't get any of that contact information, just call the Historical Society of Berks County at 610-375-4375, and we'll make sure you get in touch with these gentlemen, because it is our great organization, and we need to see you continue on fulfilling this wonderful service that you're doing for this community by preserving this history.
Well, if it wouldn't be for people like you that are broadcasting more of what we do, we wouldn't be as good as we are. And if you haven't been to the Historical Society of Berks, please go. It's very interesting. They have dragsters. They have Tommy Hinterschitz's Miracle Power #2 there. They have junior stocks that used to run on 13th Street. They have motorcycles, sports cars, all kind of pictures. And it's just worth it to go there to bring back all the memories of not just Reading, but all racing in Berks County. And a lot of people don't know there was about 25, 30 different racing venues in Berks County itself.
It really was impressive. Well, we're going to have to go. We're going to have to say goodbye. I'd like to remind all the audience, we thank you for joining us tonight. It's coming up in the fall. We're going to have the 4 Centuries in Berks Historic Property Tour on Saturday, October 1st, 2011, where we're going to be exploring Wyomissing and the environs. There are a total of 17 properties on the tour. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a great time. I'd like to say, tell your friends about our show, which is live the first Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. It repeats Friday at 10 p.m., Saturday at 6 p.m., and then the following Sunday morning at 9 p.m. We really appreciate you gentlemen being here tonight. We want you to continue on in your mission. It's great to be associated with colleagues such as yourself. So
same here.
We thank all of you for being a part of the show tonight.
See you at the fair.
See you at the fair.
See you at the fair.
See you next month.